Hi, I'm Roberta. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make a Kerala Parotta, a traditional bread, Indian bread from the state of Kerala on the west coast of India. Now, I wanted to introduce a bread to our month of Indian inspiration, and where do you start? There's naan, there's paratha, there's roti, there's puris, and then we decided to do the thatakada chicken, and it's traditionally served with Parotta from Kerala. So that made it easy, and here we are. So we start with some flour, a pinch of sugar, a pinch of salt, about a teaspoon of vegetable oil. There we go. And let me get rid of that. Our water. Now, I'm going to start stirring this and adding our water. As with any dough or batter, we don't want to add all of the water at once in case it's too much, because each lot is different. Now, usually we do need the whole amount. Let's just see. We want quite a firm dough. Yes, I think we're going to need it all. In it goes. Okay. So we mix that together to form a dough. It's a bit sticky at the moment, a bit flaky, but we're going to turn it out and knead it in just a second. Now, the thing that's interesting with this dough is we don't use flour to stop it from sticking, we use oil. This is quite a rich, oily bread. So we're going to put a little oil. It's a little more than a little, but that's okay, we're working on wood. A little oil onto our work surface, and in just a second we're going to knead this dough on the oiled work surface. I'm just going to give that a good rub in so we're not introducing too much more oil. Alright, out with our dough. Now, this is only a small amount. Obviously you can double it, triple it, whatever you want. Out with our dough. Pick up all those bits onto our work surface and let's knead it. Get those bits off my fingers. I'm sorry, this is messy. I don't know any other way to do it. And now, this is quite dry and floury at the moment. It is sticking a little bit, so let's keep that oil moving around. And you typically need to give this quite a good kneading, 4 or 5 minutes I'd say, and then you will see that it changes from a little bit lumpy and not too well amalgamated to a smooth, elastic dough. I can already feel that changing under my hands, so a little bit of patience. Keep it on the oiled section, and we can always add a little bit more oil if we need. Don't wear good clothes for this. This does get a bit messy. There we go. Now that's really starting to come together and be quite smooth already. Very therapeutic and very good workout, I think, for the arm muscles. The old kneading. Get a little more of that oil. And then, once we've got this kneaded to a smooth consistency, we're going to pop it back in the bowl, cover it with a damp tea towel, and set it aside for at least 30 minutes. You can even make this dough and refrigerate it overnight, ready to make your paratha the next day. There we go. That's nice and stretchy and ready to go into the bowl with a damp cloth under it. We'll come back and look at it in about 30 minutes. So here we have our dough well rested under our damp cloth, and it's nice and soft, nice and elastic. I'm just going to give it another little knead, wake it up. Yeah, that's beautiful. Now we'll divide that into two. Shouldn't have thrown my cloth away because I actually want to leave that resting under the cloth. And now, again with the oil, so not a floured work surface, but an oiled work surface. And we want that, we might just use that to rub it in. Now, if any of you made roti with Simon Go, this might start to look familiar because we want to get this dough as thin as we possibly can, and then it's different to the roti. Then we pleat it. But let's start by rolling it out. Let me get rid of my flour as thinly as possible. Now, again, don't wear good clothes for this because it's going to get messy. But the good thing about the oil is nothing sticks. So rolling this way, rolling that way. We want a good, long, thin, and you can see that it's almost getting see-through, and it's getting those bubbles like it did when we made the roti. So these breads are obviously quite closely related. And interestingly, at the end, we fluff this up like a roti. So there we go. We've got that as thin as we can get it. Can almost see you through it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pleat it. Now, how do we pleat it? I might get the video to come in close up for this. I'm just going to rub a little more oil on the dough. This really is one of those recipes where you can't have too much oil. You want to make sure that surface is well oiled, and with the other hand, so it doesn't get too messy, a little flour, because that's going to help create the layers that we want. And now we're pleating. So how do we pleat? We lift it up and we fold it down, and we lift it up and we fold it down. And it's good to give it a bit of a stretch as we're doing this, and you'll see why in a minute. Up and down, up and down, up and down, stretching it out. Whoops, up and down. There we go. So we've ended up with a long pleated strip. Now we wind it around our finger like that to make a scroll and tuck it in there. That's it for now. We're going to work with the other one. So now a little more oil on our work surface. It's almost impossible to have too much oil with this recipe. And our scroll, might get rid of those now. There's our scroll, and we're going to roll him patiently out into a nice, flat, even-sized disc. And you can see, I hope, how all those different layers are going to come together and form our flaky bread. Now, sometimes you'll get some splits. That's fine. It's still going to taste delicious. It's a rustic bread. It's street food. It doesn't need to look perfect. We want to keep it as round as possible so it sits in the pan nicely, and we want it quite thin because we want it to cook through. There we go. All right, let's get that in the pan. So into a well-oiled pan goes our paratha. We want to hear that sizzle, but we also want to cook him slowly. Now each time he goes in, he gets another little dose of oil. And ideally, we're going to flip him 3 or 4 times. So each side's going to crisp up about a minute at a time. We want to hear the sizzle, but we don't want him burning because we want that dough, all of those layers, to cook evenly. I love cast iron for this because it holds the heat really well. If you don't have cast iron, copper's good. Anything that's a good, heavy, even heat. A griddle would be perfect. So you can see it started to puff up. Let's flip him over. Nice and firm. Over he goes. And we're starting to get that brown speckled that we want. Every time we turn, we oil again. and give him about a minute on that side, then we'll flip again. So there we go. Oh yes, you can see the nice flakes there, and we'll give him a little more oil. And another minute or so on that side. So there we go. Flip him over one more time. And you can see we've got that speckling around the edges now. That's what we want. And there he is. Nice and crisp and golden speckledy all over. So here's our paratha. Look how crisp and flaky he is. Now there's one more trick which I haven't quite mastered, and it's the fluffing. So if we go, it breaks it up a bit, but it also fluffs up those layers a little bit. And that makes him extra flaky, extra yummy, and he's going to be gorgeous dipped in our green sauce. Maybe with our chicken wrapped up in him, just like we're on the streets in Kerala enjoying a feast. Namaste, enjoy.